Recently, I've been covering some changes that have been taking place at Amazon Studios as they try to streamline their structure by eliminating their former studio head. Meanwhile, other studios are just imploding before our very eyes in real time. It's crazy to witness this. In regards to Warner Brothers, I came out with a video that Warner Brothers is having such a hard time lately, and the rumors were that if Superman doesn't perform to expectation, that they would run the risk of going the way of 20th Century Fox and being consumed by another entity, being bought out. It's crazy to think about when it comes to a studio like Warner Brothers, who's been around for over 100 years. But now with this new exclusive interview by Variety going into all of the chaos behind the scenes of this studio, I don't think Superman can save it. It was kind of a long shot anyways in regards to the IP itself, because there's just been this long string of low quality DC films, and the audience expectation just isn't where it should be in regards to placing that much faith in it, if it can save them from all of their numerous flops. How this will affect Dune is something that I'm really looking at this news from that perspective, because I think Legendary should jump ship with Warner Brothers. They need to break up with Warner Brothers now. It's pretty crazy how they're just imploding. It's just sheer pandemonium behind the scenes of the studio. I think Legendary needs to move on. Legendary already puts up most of the money for production for the Dune films, for Dune Prophecy as well. Legendary has the film and TV rights, so they have all that's necessary. But Warner Brothers did put up a small portion of the production budget. I think it was 80-20. And of course, Warner Brothers handles all the distribution side of it. And I think it's just been a bad deal, honestly, in how it's worked out, because part of the problem with Warner Brothers of why it's having the issues that it does is because of its distribution strategy and how they've kind of diminished their returns and IPs themselves with their focus on HBO Max. I think it's been way too much trying to get that established. They're either sending films to streaming way too soon to prioritize subscriptions to Max. That's just what audiences come to expect now, that if they're not sure if they're going to like something, they'll just wait till it comes to streaming. And a lot of times, when something gets released online, a premium format, it's going to be pirated. I don't even know if they really think about that kind of stuff. I think it's a situation that's entirely of their own making as far as their mismanagement. And I think for the sake of the Dune franchise, Legendary needs to pull out of this relationship. They need to move on, because I think it's actually a very real possibility that Warner Brothers will be bought out. We'll see how Dune Messiah works out, because they've already contracted out, they've already negotiated and put everything in place. But after that, I think Legendary should pursue other studios, Universal or something of the like, if a studio like Universal doesn't buy them up already by that point. In the meantime, Legendary, they're tied to Warner Brothers right now. They've already made their deals. Let's just see how much of a sinking ship this is, because this is pretty crazy. So this is an article from Variety. It's an exclusive. Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy under fire at Warner Brothers amid box office flops. We didn't want to fail David Zaslav. Under DeLuca and Abdy's watch, Warner Brothers had 2023's monster hit Barbie, which was technically greenlit under the regime of their predecessor Toby Emmerich. But the studio has been hurting as its film slate for 2024 crashed and burned. So far in 2025, a pair of movies about doppelgangers, which rely heavily on special effects, Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17 with Robert Pattinson and The Alto Knights with Robert De Niro, will set the studio back at least $110 million in losses. Until this month, DeLuca and Abdy hadn't seemed as concerned with the balance sheet at Warner Brothers. Over their long career, the pair have branded themselves as filmmaker champions who love to take big swings. But with morale on the lot dangerously low, industry-wide chatter and numerous reports suggest that DeLuca and Abdy's days running Warner Brothers could be numbered. Sources say the pair have lost the confidence of Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, whose impatient management style is focused on the bottom line. Yes, someone's got to think about the money, and though I don't agree with David Zaslav's decisions, it's all just commercialism. That's what he's focused on, so sometimes there is some casualties that you wish weren't there, but you can't fault him for wanting to make this a profitable venture. As the rumor mill has gone into overdrive, the town has whispered that Peter Safran, the co-chairman of Warner Brothers DC Films with James Gunn, could possibly inherit control of all of Warner Brothers if things continue to go south. That's looking like a real possibility, and we'll see if it even bears out anything positive, if they can turn things around, if a change could do anything significant and dig themselves out of this hole entirely of their own making. And maybe Superman might be what does it. If there is at least a glimmer of hope in Superman, they'll just go ahead and make the change then with Peter Safran. Clearly that will be their approach moving forward, is just to make sure that those big budget blockbusters that will bring in the most revenue, if those are done well, maybe then you can take those big swings for original films and indie films or art house films. But the popcorn films, the ones that are going to get the most people into theaters, that might be their focus moving forward. While the studio counted a win last year with Beetlejuice, DeLuca and Abdy have had to weather bad press swirling around Furiosa and Juror Number 2, Clint Eastwood's latest drama, which went to streaming following a token release in theaters. The drama was, why aren't you giving this film a wide release? I guess they conceded in that it was a limited release, but the priority was just to send it to streaming. You prioritizing streaming so heavily is part of the problem here. And even then, if you know a movie is going to come out to streaming soon, of course it incentivizes people to just watch it at home. Why would they then want to go see it in theaters if they know it's coming to streaming in the next 2 weeks or so? But continuing on, none of those titles, however, bombed as severely as Todd Phillips' Joker Folie Adieu, a film they greenlit to blatant audience rejection and critical revolt. People at the time were questioning why they even greenlit a sequel. But also, when you find out the Joker sequel had such a severe jump in its cost in comparison to the first film, which was very small budget, didn't end up making like $1 billion. It was hugely profitable because they kept their budget really low and they just didn't have confidence enough in it. And it ended up being enormously successful because their budget was so low and because so many people went to go see it. But that doesn't mean that it's ripe for a sequel. And a lot of people just didn't like that idea. Phillips just went in a very experimental, strange direction with it. Just bringing this back to Dune, Denis Villeneuve is a seasoned filmmaker. And from childhood, he was a fan of Dune and that was his dream. But he had that experience, that filmmaking experience first, and the sci-fi filmmaking experience specifically to great success first. Dune Part 1 was $165 million just to produce the film, and Dune Part 2 came out to $190 million, and both of those films did suffer delays, which I'm sure affected their production, those expenses, and in marketing as well. So keeping their budget as tight as they could and getting a qualified team behind you to make this film really spoke to their experience, their dedication, and their knowledge and passion. What is your motivation behind it? Do you have a good story to tell that audiences are going to respond to, especially if you're entering into the dangerous waters of a sequel? You have something good, there you go. Not everything needs to have a sequel installment. So a very questionable decision right there to greenlight Joker 2 and take such a wild experimental approach with it, and just to massive audience rejection, as Variety puts it. Who okayed that? And if it was DeLuca and Abdy, then that decision alone should have put their jobs in jeopardy. The mounting pressure has been corrosive for DeLuca and Abdy and their team, sources say, creating what one Warner Brothers insider described as a swirling fiasco of tension within the motion picture group. Some high-level individuals with knowledge of DeLuca and Abdy said their decades-long relationship has been tested as they advocate for projects and manage the expectations of Zaslav. Things came to a head inside the operation last week in the run-up to a slew of release date changes, four sources with knowledge of the matter told Variety. Notably, Paul Thomas Anderson's $130 million plus crime thriller starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and the film's called One Battle After Another, that was pushed from the summer blockbuster season to September, where it can be positioned for awards. Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride, a punk rock art house project based on The Bride of Frankenstein, which cost $80 million, was moved from September to spring of 2026. I guess they've just resigned that probably Paul Thomas Anderson's movie is not going to do well financially, but they want to position it in a place that at least might get awards recognition, as we already know that the voting Academy members have memories of Goldfish, so they only pay attention to those films over there at the end of the year. But it's weird just on paper that you wouldn't want to keep the Bride of Frankenstein movie in a fall release date. That seems strange to move it to spring. In the days prior to the date changes, DeLuca and Abdy had taken to having shouting matches in the office they share on the lot, two sources said. Another studio insider said the executives were openly bickering with their marketing team on group emails. Both denied open hostility with their teams, via email or otherwise. Abdy said she and DeLuca present as is. We're from Jersey and Brooklyn, spirited and passionate leaders. There haven't been aggressive conversations or emails. It's all about what's going to be best for the movie. They're trying to say that everything's fine and sunshine and roses, but the sources watching all of this unfold tell a different story. But you can definitely see why there would be added tension and drama and anxiety. I'm sure tensions were high and emotions were high, especially in the midst of all of these high-profile, huge flops, a long string of them. They weren't even in the best position to begin with when they came on board, but they definitely haven't had a good string under their tenure. The pair acknowledged some well-documented recent failures and stood strong behind their next crop of movies. Early tracking for Jack Black's Minecraft movie suggests it could resonate, but it's no Super Mario Brothers movie. If they're having to rely on Minecraft, they're in trouble. And I think that the recent Snow White movie and its foibles and its troubles in the box office also adds to the fact that your movie is not safe just because it's a famous IP. But if you're hoping on Minecraft to bail you out, you're in a very sorry position. Abdy, however, was vexed by a recent report saying she and Luca were irresponsible for giving Gyllenhaal a huge budget for her second go as director, following the $5 million Netflix title, The Lost Daughter. This idea that Maggie doesn't deserve to have a big budget? She asks. It's not cool. Do you know how many men make lower budgeted movies and then go on to have huge budgets? First of all, yeah, I don't like her reasoning here, and it's probably why they're in the position that they're in. I think it's entirely reasonable for someone to question the fiscal responsibility when the only thing that Maggie Gyllenhaal has done prior to this is a $5 million Netflix film, and next you're going to give her $80 million to produce very much a niche project, a punk rock art house Bride of Frankenstein film. This has nothing to do with you being a woman, because even Bong Joon-ho, who has produced much more than Maggie Gyllenhaal has, very respected as an indie filmmaker, produced like 12 films with very small budgets. So Parasite was his last film, which I think cost $11 million. And his next film after that, $118 million. And it bombed. And that is why you are in the position that you're in. And you know what's not cool? Is nuking a studio, destroying a studio because you keep making bad decisions. You keep producing flop after flop after flop. I'm fine with giving Maggie Gyllenhaal a chance, but maybe have some more experience under your belt before you give her $80 million on a film that is very experimental and that most likely will not get your money back. It's going to have to make blockbuster size box office numbers, and I just don't think it's going to. You are in a bad position, and studios like Legendary, who have deals with these studios, distribution deals, need to bail now. Legendary needs to break up with Warner Brothers. There's so many poor decisions here. This has just been insane to witness in real time how such a storied, historic studio has gotten to this point. There's a corporatism element to this as well. There needs to be that cohesion between the art and the commercial aspect of it. Both indie films and blockbusters, of course, need to be well written, but they both need to have sensible budgets. Indie movies just are not going to receive the same box office reception that maybe they even used to, because the landscape has changed and you can't rely on blockbusters to bail you out. So on all fronts, things need to change. And if Warner Brothers can't make these changes, Legendary needs to break up with them. Maybe they'll be bought by something else by the time Children of Dune or another Dune production rolls around. But I'm curious to know what you think about the drama behind the scenes at Warner Brothers and what's led the company to be on the brink of collapse. Do you agree that it would be best for Legendary to find a new distribution and production partner for Dune and its other projects? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more sci-fi and fantasy news, theories, and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to support the channel, you can leave a super thanks or join as a YouTube member for early access to new videos and other perks. You can also check out my Patreon page for exclusive content. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.